bit slow to pick up there. Come on, just a second, I'll do it now.
Okay, and I'll reintroduce it.
It's recording.
Thank you very much. Okay, so on to item number 11 on the agenda, and that's the review of the contract management arrangements in waste services. If I can hand over to Councillor Stenner.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to seek Cabinet approval of a proposal to strengthen contract management arrangements within waste services. This report was unanimously supported by the Environment and Sustainability Scrutiny Committee on the 23rd of March 2021. The report sets out details of the range of high-value contracts that are managed within waste services and provides details of a proposal to strengthen current contract management arrangements. The proposed approach will ensure that all contracts are maximised in terms of service delivery, regulatory requirements, and that the wider social value benefits are realised. At the end of the proposed 2-year contract management review period, an analysis of effectiveness of the service model will be undertaken to determine if this approach to contract management can be applied more generally to other service areas across the Council. The report also includes a proposal to fund the estimated costs of circa £410,000 to undertake a contract management review. The recommendations are shown as 3.1.1 and 3.1.2, and Cabinet is asked to approve the proposed contract management review, and they are to agree that the total cost of £410,000 for the proposed 4 fixed-term posts for a period of 2 years should be funded as follows: £400,000 from the balance remaining on an earmarked reserve previously established to meet cost pressures within waste services, and £10,000 from the projected 2020-21 revenue budget underspend for the corporate procurement team. Thank you.
That was a mouthful. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor George.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm only too happy to second the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor George. Are there any questions in relation to this? That's a no. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for bringing this today, Councillor Stenner, because I think it's really important that we look to, look at the range of our high value contracts, and I think that's really important that we look at these and make sure that we do the best by the management of those. And I think this proposed approach that's been suggested in this report is the right way forward. And I'm pleased to see that the actual fixed term posts are for 2 years and not 1. I think that's also a welcome position as well in terms of getting the work done, so to speak. So if there's no further comments or statements around that, if we can go to the vote. I realise I'm not giving anyone much notice on those forms being produced, so thank you. Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, if we can move to the next item on the agenda then, which is the flexible working update report. And if I can go to Councillor Gordon, please.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to update Cabinet on the progress with the flexible working corporate review following the report being presented to Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee on the 21st of January 2021. The authority has gone through an unprecedented period of flexible working in relation to the current coronavirus pandemic, and it has provided a stimulus to show the benefits of working in such a way. Remote working has allowed many services to the public to be delivered safely and continuously, and for the council employees to manage multiple aspects of their professional and personal lives in a way that has brought about a much greater work-life balance than was possibly previously possible. The Flexible Working Corporate Review Group has been formed and are considering the changes and effects of moving to a more flexible working model approach. An update on the progress of the review was recently reported to Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee. Whilst the focus of the report relates to staff who have primarily worked from buildings, it should be noted that opportunities for flexible working are available in frontline services which support employees' career choices and also personal circumstances via part-time working, shift patterns, for example. Cabinet are asked to consider supporting and approving the work done to date and to endorse the recommendations set out in the report at 3.11 to 3.16 for the reasons set out in the report. I move the report and the recommendations, Chair.
Thanks ever so much, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Phipps.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm more than happy to second the recommendations and also to thank all the staff who have adapted to the changes put upon them. Thank you.
Okay. And is anyone speaking to the report, Officer Wise?
I can add a few comments if you like, Councillor Marsden.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Councillor Gordon covered it off adequately, but I'd just like to add, obviously, looking at the bigger picture, Welsh Government are looking at ways that they can get at least 30% of the workforce of Wales working more from home or locally, which we've also declared a climate emergency. And this will go a long way to reducing the carbon emissions with travel, improving the air quality, reducing congestion on the road network. So there are big benefits from that perspective as well as from the staff perspective. So that's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you ever so much, Marcus. And it's really important to note, isn't it, that, you know, the potential for modal shift here is enormous, you know, as we see people adapt and change their working lives and patterns to something that we probably couldn't even imagined over a year ago. So I think this approach to the flexible working aspect of our lives is going to be quite significant for us as an authority. And I think it encompasses that need to acknowledge the climate emergency, that modal shift that's needed, and for also, you know, being able to adapt to the modern 21st century way of working. I think that's something that's also important. And I think for me, this highlights, doesn't it, that work is something that you do, not something necessarily that you go to. So work is something that you do and not travel to. So I think that's really, really important that we've all adapted in such a way. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I'd just like to add quickly, Leader, if you go back to this time last year and you look at where we are now, there's been an absolutely tremendous amount of work done by Marcus, Lynn and their staff, and I just like to give my gratitude and my thanks.
No, absolutely, Councillor Gordon, and this was no mean feat. And I think the fact that, you know, we turned on a sixpence to reshape the organisation to deal with the COVID pandemic in terms of everyone working from home where they were able to, has just meant something that's actually culturally, it's been a huge shift, isn't it? It is, you know, something that may have taken us many, many years to do. So I think that the fact that everyone has embraced our working lives so differently is great. It's great that everyone has seen it in a positive light. But again, what it highlights for me is that we will look at this through a different lens. Some people will need to work from a fixed location, you know, because of their roles, and that's important. Some people would prefer to work from a fixed location because it helps them in their day-to-day lives. But also it just highlights for me that it's that flexible is the word here, isn't it? You know, and that approach to work and what you do. So thank you. I've got a hand up there, sorry. Ed, do you want to come in?
Yeah, very briefly, Leader. I don't want to prolong this. I'll echo the thoughts of colleagues and members about the fantastic job that's been done right across the organisation in adapting to this. But when we've chatted this through with P&R on a number of occasions, members have been very concerned about the impact on staff well-being of working remotely over extended periods of time. So I just wanted to make Cabinet aware that we're in the process of readying a staff survey, which will touch on aspects of well-being as well as the kind of experiences of working from home. We'll use the data from that survey then to feed into the review, tweak our approaches and make sure that we've got something that meets the needs of us as an employer, but also those employees that are working in new ways. Just thought it would be remiss of us not to mention that. And I believe Lynn may confirm, I think it's due out early next week. Thanks, Leader.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you. Lynn, are you able to confirm?
Yes, Leader, thank you, I am. We were due to send the survey out prior to Easter, but the contents of it are so important, we didn't want to miss anybody that was on leave or working term time only, so it's going to be sent out next week now. So hopefully we can capture as big as an audience as we can. It's also going to be sent out to the staff who are not on email as well, because we want to gain the views of all of the workforce.
And that's really good to hear, Lynn, because I think that's really important. We mustn't forget that not everyone is on an email and sits at a desk, because that's not their working lives. So thank you for that's really important that we do that. And I think for me, I suppose, it's the fact that we've got that cross-union support as well, you know, with the trade unions for this, because I think it's about us doing this collectively together with the workforce to ensure that we do the right thing for everyone. So I am really pleased that, you know, we're going down this route. Again, not everyone is happy to work from home. We know that. And as long as we have provision in place that adjusts so that everyone can be accommodated in what their needs are to fit their work. Again, you know, we've looked at the potential for different space and altering our space within the authority, well, within the main T Penalty building. And I think this is really exciting for us. So thank you. If there's no other comments, then I think we can go to the vote then to proceed. Thank you, everyone. Again, you know, and really pass on my thanks to everyone involved, because this has been a Herculean effort by everyone. So thank you for everyone. Okay, next item on the agenda then is item number 13, and that is to receive an update on the fleet review work and transition to ultra-low emission vehicles. If I can hand over to Councillor George.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to provide the Cabinet with an update on the work to review the Council's fleet, with a particular focus on the transition to ultra-low emission vehicles. Secondly, to seek Cabinet's approval to implement the actions identified in the next steps to reduce carbon emissions from our fleet. And finally, to inform Cabinet the contract of the Fleet Review Officer has been extended for additional 2 years. In summary, on November 2020, Cabinet approved funding for 200,978,000 to install electrical vehicle charging points at Tirabirth, Tredomon House and T Penalty. This infrastructure should allow up to 100 electrical vehicles to be introduced into the authority's fleet. It is anticipated that this work will be completed by the end of May 2021. In May 2020, a Fleet Review Officer was appointed on a 12-month contract based on the policy and partnership team to drive forward this agenda. This post has been a vital role in the progress to date. The post has now been extended using officer delegated powers for additional 2 years until March 2023 at a total cost of 92,000. The extension will be funded from a reserve established from an underspent on the 2020-21 carbon energy tax budget. Work has been undertaken to better understand the makeup of our fleet and the implications that has been on our transition to ultra-low emission vehicles. This work has identified the complexity of the transition to ultra-low vehicles, and this report sets out these challenges and the additional proposed actions to develop a programme of work to make the most of the efficient use of our fleet, whilst ensuring the authority becomes carbon neutral by 2030. The recommendations are that Cabinet notes the progress made to date as part of the fleet review and transition to ultra-low emission vehicle work. The Cabinet note that the extension of the Fleet Review Officer's post for additional 2 years. And finally, the Cabinet approves the proposed actions set out in this report to continue the transition to ultra-low emission vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Councillor George. If I can bring Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I would like to second this report and welcome a fleet review and transition to low emission vehicles. It supports the Cabinet and Council's aim of reducing carbon and supporting our environment. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you ever so much, Councillor Cook. It's really important, isn't it, that we take this step. So, Paul, did you want to come in and add anything further to the report?
Well, the report does set out all the achievements to date, so you'll see there's huge achievements in the last 12 months, which is gratifying to see. So we now have a very much better understanding of what our fleet, our existing fleet, and what the challenges are. It's a clear programme in place. I mean, there are challenges, and there are difficult challenges, which the report sets out. But I would say that we're pretty well placed now to tackle those challenges and to become carbon neutral by 2030.
No, thank you, Paul. It's a really important update report, this. You know, as you say, it's recognising those challenges, and I think, you know, we'd be silly not to accept that there are challenges around this. But, you know, the fact that we're putting a resource behind this now to look further and to continue this work is really, really important, that we're signalling where we want to be on this. So it's fantastic. So if there's no other questions or statements, I think then that means that we're happy to proceed to the vote on this then, Paul. And that once again is unanimous. So thank you, Paul, and thank you to everyone that's been part of this team and doing the great work on this. So Diane, thank you. If I may, it was remiss of me after the 21st century groupings of reports for me basically not to emphasise the fact that, you know, what has already been planned here and what we're actually doing here, it means that there's almost £40 million of investment being considered today by Cabinet. If you look at all those reports, and I think that's really, really important. And, you know, and I should have said this before we stopped for our quick comfort break. You know, again, you know, the team around the 21st centuries, you know, and that's Sue Richards, Andrea West, Lisa, and other colleagues right across the organisation. And I want to say thank you to Sarah Ellis as well for her input today, and Sarah Much, you know, because I think that absolutely team ethos has come through there in terms of delivering our education provision. And I think, you know, they've been outstanding in what they've done in relation to these reports, because they are difficult reports to bring the business cases that have to go even to Welsh Government in the first instance are hard work, you know, and they're very in depth, and they have to be, because this is large amounts of money that are investing. But again, £40 million investment being considered a day, and I think that's really important that we don't lose sight of that and what we're hoping to achieve here through the Band B programme that's attributed to the Welsh Government, with such great intervention rates that basically benefit our communities out there. So I should have said that earlier, but I've done it now anyway. So can I say they've been brilliant in all that they've done, so thank you. Okay, if that's it now, I think that's everything on the agenda. That was a long agenda, everyone, and thank you everyone that's on the call that has stayed with us, because that was a long meeting, and I just want to say thank you for your contributions, everyone, and thank you very much.